What's going on, guys? I'm super excited to share this story with all of you because I think it's really cool and interesting. So, for those of you who don't know, there's a brand new canon comic series that started this month called Star Wars The Battle of Jakku. It's a 12-issue series that's going to run through 3 different arcs, and the first one is called Insurgency Rising, and it picks up immediately after Return of the Jedi. So it's showing what happened after the Battle of Endor and how there were still Imperials trying to keep the Empire alive and keep the war going and stuff like that. So it's in an important part of the timeline, like filling the gaps between episodes 6 and 7. But anyway, in the first issue, there is actually an amazing scene that blew me away, and it's very important to the Skywalker saga. So let's jump into this comic and see how Leia visited Darth Vader's remains right after Return of the Jedi. So I think that it's the following night after Return of the Jedi ends because they show Leia, Luke, and Han talking during the daytime earlier in the issue. So it seems like Leia waited one day and then went to Vader's funeral pyre the next night. Or maybe this is like a little flashback to the same night that the movie ends. I don't know, dude. It's really not clear in the comic, but just think of it as like right after the movie. It's either the same night or it's the next night. I don't know. Anyway, everyone was still celebrating around the galaxy. As the Ewoks danced on the surface of Endor, the debris field of the second Death Star floated above. But while others were celebrating, Leia felt other things like regret and anger in the face of victory. As she approached the smoldering remains of a funeral pyre, she said hello, and although she hesitated, she called Vader her father. She said that she came to say goodbye. As she spoke to him, she noticed that Vader's charred and melted helmet had fallen to the ground. Leia said that she wasn't sure what she wanted to find at the pyre. She said that it should be a happy moment where she celebrated the rebellion's victory after years of pain and war. As she knelt down to Vader's helmet, she said she was stubborn and that she couldn't help herself. She needed to talk to him face to face. As she reached out towards the helmet, she said she wasn't sure what to say to him now that she was there. Leia picked up the helmet and looked at it, and said that she wasn't like Luke, who could forgive so easily. As she tossed the helmet back onto the pyre, Leia said that all she felt was anger over the things that Vader did, the people he had hurt and the people he had left behind. Walking away, Leia said that she was going to set that aside for the time being, because her family was waiting, and she went to join the victory celebrations. Sometime later, Luke went to speak with her, and said that he knew she went to visit their father's remains. Leia asked if he had followed her, but he said that he had sensed it, that her anger came to him and he felt it through the Force. Leia replied that she thought she had a lot to be upset about, but Luke interrupted her and said that anger led to darkness and they couldn't let that drive them. Leia said that she was not Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader. She wasn't a Jedi. She was a person with feelings that couldn't just be buried. She said that they'd all been through darkness that left scars, which needed to heal. At that, Luke offered to help her. He wanted to train her as a Jedi and share everything that he had learned. But Leia was unsure and didn't give him an answer before they were interrupted by one of their lieutenants with important information. So I'm really glad that this scene was included in this comic because the relationship between Leia and Anakin is really compelling to me, and it's not something that has been explored very much in canon. There is the book Bloodline, which explores the repercussions of Luke and Leia being Anakin's children in the New Republic about 20 or so years after the original trilogy, which I own but I have not read yet. And the novelization of Episode 9 states that Leia saw Anakin as she died and finally forgave him for everything as she became one with the Force, which I think is pretty beautiful. But I'm glad that they added this scene on Endor in the comic, because there is another interesting scene from the canon book The Princess and the Scoundrel, which takes place the same night that Return of the Jedi ends, where Luke and Leia talk about the aftermath of the battle, and he actually tries to speak to her about Vader. When Luke approached her, Leia was repulsed by the stench of smoke that clung to his black tunic. It made her sick to her stomach, because she knew that while she had celebrated and danced in the village, he had gone to give Darth Vader a funeral pyre. On top of that, she was supposed to feel triumphant, but she only felt more confused, and not just about what Luke had told her about their lineage. Luke asked her if it was the Force, and she nodded. While she had told him that she couldn't understand the power he had, there was no denying that she did feel it too, fluttering on the edge of her consciousness, even if she had no experience with it. It was like the Force was waiting for her to seize it. Luke began to say that Anakin had told him to tell Leia something, but she spun around to glare at him with fierce eyes and warned him not to finish his sentence. Luke said that Anakin's last words were about her, and he wanted him to tell her something, but Leia replied that she didn't care. Luke insisted that there was good in their father in the end, but Leia only thought of Bail and Leia Organa as her parents. So you can see that there was already this story established a couple years ago of Leia being completely reluctant to even acknowledge anything Luke had to say about Vader right away in canon. That's why I like that they added this story in the new comics, where she goes to the pyre and actually calls him father a day or two later, like she was learning to accept it and trying to move on, even if she still despised him at the time. Even in Legends, she learned more about Anakin's life over the years and eventually forgave him, even naming her third child Anakin Solo. I recently made a video explaining the story of how Leia visited Tatooine and learned about Anakin's early life and the life of her grandmother Shmi Skywalker, so check that out if you're interested in a great Legends story. It's from the book Tatooine Ghost, which released in 2003, and it's one of those awesome stories from the early 2000s that was coming out during the prequel trilogy, where they kind of merged the OT and the prequel trilogy together to make some cohesion with the two timelines and bring those characters together. Anyway, I really like this story from this comic. I think it complements the little scene from The Princess and the Scoundrel really well, and I'm hoping that the relationship between Leia and Anakin is something that they expand upon a lot more in canon. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and as always, may the Force be with you.